apologies for that, everyone, and thank you very much for your patience. My name is Esita Sogotubu, and I am the Employability Manager at UTS Careers. Misambula Binaka, a warm Pasifika greetings to all of you, and welcome to this session on navigating your career voyage. I guess if you read my little abstract or intro to the session, it was literally about taking you through some of the career sessions, the career path that we usually go through with students. So not only will that, I hope that that kind of helps you in your career path, but it's sort of a way that you can talk to your students about it as well. Now, I guess for me to introduce myself, I am Nangona Bunuku Moalalau, Vasi Wanibuka, Nayavu. Get really emotional when I go into my Fijian way of talking because I feel very privileged to be here, as I'm sure all of you are. So I came here as an international student a very long time ago. I went back home and worked for the newspaper, Fiji Times. I also worked in hospitality before I came back to Australia, because when I came to study as an international student, obviously fell in love with the Palangi, so I came back to Tasmania. Then I've lived in Melbourne and now Sydney. So I feel like I have done a lot of work with international students as well over the years, and I feel really, really blessed to be able to come into this space of our own people, for our own people. And just looking at all the presentations that have just gone past today is just amazing. It's very inspiring. It even makes me think about my career path. So I hope that you'll find this session today useful, and I'll try to keep the time, and I'll try and make time at the end as well. But before that's a really quick snapshot about me. I actually wanted to get to know you guys just a little bit from you in the audience as I started at the beginning. I was wondering if you could go into menti.com, and I'll bring that up for us. If you go into menti.com, Keelan, can you see the Menti on my screen? Great. I was just wondering if you wanted to put in what island or country that you wanted to put in that you identify with into the Menti, and I'll just present. So if you go into menti.com, it will ask you for a code. The code's up there on the screen. It's 82679697. If you just go in and put in the code of 82679697, and we've got Samoa, Chihuahua. That's really great. Fiji. I wonder who's going to be the most. I have a feeling it could be Samoa, because statistically, that's the most islanders in Australia is Samoans. Tokelau, Tonga. Somebody's from Party Land. I thought all Pacifica people are from Party Land.
Yes.
This is great. Okay, I might leave it at that one. I've got another question for you. Is this going to work? When you think about your career, you have that sentence, fill in the gap in there. Do you have no idea what is the next step in your career? Do you have some idea, or you have clear direction in your career? And there's no right or wrong answer, because this is about you and your career. I'm just trying to gauge where people are at when you think about your career. Cool. That's good. That's also quite normal to be no idea. A lot of university students get really shy or ashamed when they go, I don't know what I'm doing. It's like, that's actually more common than I know exactly what I'm doing. That's great. So most of us will have some idea. That's quite standard, and that's just a small sample. I know that. But most of us will have some idea in terms of your career path, because most of us will have some level of questioning from families as well, right? So just a quick outline of the session that I wanted to cover with you today, I guess covering the themes of the conference as well, is navigating the key elements of your career path, connecting those dots in your career journey, and then weaving your career path forward. And I guess that's where I'll bring in the future of work. So if we are looking at navigating the key elements of your career path, I'll come up with one of the most commonly used models for career development. It's the DOTS model. So D for decision making, O for opportunity awareness, T for taking action or transition, and S for self-awareness. And usually you would start off with that level of self-awareness, you know, things that I call your VIPs, your values, your interests, your personality traits, your strengths. That goes into, you know, looking at opportunity awareness in terms of what's available out there. And you're bringing in all your VIPs to be able to judge what is the best way to go forward in terms of the opportunities that are available for you and aligning those to where you want to go. And then, you know, trying to make the decision around that, you know, what is the next step for you, planning for that, and then taking that action in terms of whether that's, you know, if let's say we're talking about an undergraduate, they've come in terms of their self-awareness, they've done their research, they've gone into, oh, I'm going to go into this university for this course because I know that, or I've learned that this is what's happening with this industry that I want to get into. So that's that decision making. And then taking that action is actually starting the course, and maybe then you come back to the self-awareness because they're learning about themselves as they transition from high school into university, or as a mature age student, you're still doing that self-awareness. So really in terms of career development, it's a continuous process. You know, it can be something that's over 3 years when you finish your degree, or 5 years, depending on the degree that you're doing. Or it can be an instant where somebody said, oh, I've got this role available. Did you want to do it? Your level of self-awareness, your values and your interests then goes, actually, this wasn't in my plan, but I might give this a go. So you go and do that role, then that's the decision made, taken the action, you come back and then you realize I really didn't like the culture in that place or in that workplace, or this was that part of that job that I didn't like. And it kind of refines you a bit better in terms of your path moving forward. You know, so if we go back to that, you know, for me, the self-awareness is really huge, but I found it quite challenging as a, you know, fresh off the boat international student. And this was last century as well. You have to remember, I didn't grow up with computers or the internet, even television. I grew up without, I did not have that. So all these things, when they start telling you about self-awareness, I was like, what do you mean? When they said, oh, you have a good level of self-awareness. And it took me ages, like until I was in my mid-20s before I realized, oh, I have good self-awareness that people keep telling me about because of that ability to self-reflect. And I feel like that is one of our strengths. But I guess as a 17-year-old, I had no clue. And this is something that comes up for us, you know, our values and how it contrasts with the Western culture and the values of Western culture. And I think one of the things that's really been encouraging for me in trying to put this presentation together is to look at the work that's out there, that's done by our people, for our people, with our people, you know. It's amazing to be able to find this stuff and put this together. So for me, like one of the things that's really strong for all of us, obviously, is that communalism, you know, our family cohesion, our clan, our tribe, our village, all of those things are just that connection. I can't imagine what it would be like to not have the roots of where I come from. So today, you know, like I think about our ancestors and who I bring with me today, my father, my grandmother, how strong they are and all the things that they've achieved. Those are the strengths that we have, and those are the values that we have that we need to use. Because the amount of inspiration that I've just felt from this morning, I'm just like, oh my God, I need to change my career path. So the other thing that's really great about us is the reciprocity that we have, the giving back, you know, that's opposite to the individuality that we have to do in terms of the education system, in terms of our careers and the recruitment processes that are starting to change. I really like that session that I was just at, where it was talking about things are starting to change, but not quickly enough, not fast enough, not good enough. And that's where we all come in as educators in terms of the reciprocity. I remember years ago, Amanda, who is also a colleague, main convener of the conference, we were trying to set up the Pacific Island Students Association at UTS. And then we also went and had an event with the UCID, Pacific Island Students Association. What I found really interesting in that session was when everyone stood up, all the students stood up to introduce themselves. Majority, it was probably, I would say 98% of them was all service industry. The degrees that they were going for was all health, was education, you know, it was all social work, psychology. It was all about everything that had to do with how and who we are. Reciprocity, giving back, communalism. And I really loved this, this idea of the family cohesion. It's so important. Like for me, my family is so huge. I'm sure all of us have really huge families, and they do get on my nerves, but I wouldn't know what it would be like to not have a family that big. So it's something that has been a challenge for me, and I'm sure for all of us, to be looking at our values and kind of going, which one am I going to go for? Like, and it doesn't have to be either. It can be who we are now, which is a mix. And I really love that. Some of the things that I spoke about just then in terms of hindrance, you know, like family is a great, helped me a lot, but it was also not so helpful with some of the responsibilities that I felt I had. You know, in terms of finances, you know, living overseas with Western Union, you're always sending money home, you know, you have to balance those kinds of things in terms of I have my value with my family and I always want to help my family. But at the same time, I've got all these financial commitments and then trying to deal mentally with that as well and emotionally. So those are some of the challenges you can see from what can hinder someone. And we're all quite aware of that. And this is, again, another great research that was done. But for me, I guess when I work particularly with international students, I really focus in on what we do have, you know, rather than all the things that work against us, which we are working towards fixing and improving. But for example, identity that I've just spoken about, you know, the mental health issues that can happen because you're kind of going through this, walking through these two different worlds, and also susceptibility to that as well. But for me, I really want to focus on our strengths, what we can do, not what we can't do, you know, our collective nature. And I love that, you know, today's conference is happening. We've had, we also have the students conference for Pasifika students that I love as well. So like really focusing on the strength. And for me, one of the biggest thing about our culture is all our songs and our dances, all of those really make us great presenters. You know, like I just think that when you have the confidence as a Pasifika person, you bring your ancestors with you, you bring all who you have right now with you, and that's what comes through you. And for me, that is a great thing, because one of the things that I have to teach students about is how to introduce yourself, how to shake hands, you know, you're meeting with employers and all of these things. And it's talking about your brand, your reputation. What do people think about you? You know, when they hear your name or when you're leaving the room, what is it that they think about you? And for me, one of the top things that they will think about me is that I'm a Pasifika person, because I wear it with a lot of pride. And so, you know, teaching students about that is really interesting, because we have to introduce ourselves in different contexts. You know, as a Pasifika person, for me, I introduce myself differently here, as I would differently to a workshop for international students, or a workshop where I'm educating employers about, you know, employing international students, and also including in that diversity, the different types of recruitment processes that really needs to change. It's very slow, but at the moment, you know, one of the top things that's changed in the UK and the US is in terms of the graduate recruitment process. They've taken out the university, because some recruiters will only hire from certain universities. They're limiting, the businesses are limiting themselves, as we know, in terms of just being quite narrow in their recruitment processes. So I would have to say that it is something that's very strong for us as Pasifika people. That's, you know, we already have that in our nature, to be really great presenters and to have confidence in where we come from. And so when you're looking at your level of self-awareness and trying to connect that in your journey, I guess, our connections, our network is so strong, it's so large, but at the same time, we can't limit ourselves to that. And we really need to go outside the box and feel uncomfortable in certain situations, because there was a particular time I went with one of my former students who ended up working with me, international student, he's a brown boy as well. I'd taken him to this corporate networking event. And when we left that event, he said to me, "Oh my God, Esita, you must go to these events and you must be the only colored person in there." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the only colored female in there half the other time." But I don't recognize that. Look, I mean, not recognize that. I don't focus on that. I'm focusing on my objective of coming in there and just being me. And that's something that really is coming through in terms of workplaces and recruitment processes. It's authenticity for the person to be as much as possible professionally themselves in the workplace, because that really shows that you have the fit for the culture of the organization, but also for the trajectory of the organization with your career path. So when you think about opportunity awareness, we are really great in helping each other within our communities, but we also need to connect with other support systems that are out there whilst we're creating ours that's specifically for us. That decision making, I know this is a hard one because we have so many influences in terms of making that decision. But at the end of the day, you need to be accountable for, and you need to be responsible for the decisions that you make. Because I can imagine also down the road, you know, when you regret a decision, you can blame other people. Whereas when you make the decision yourself, you accept and you commit to it, and you understand what can go wrong in that because you've done your own research in that. That awareness of outcomes as well is really important. That comes again from the network and research. And then taking that action, you know, and I'll talk about this a little later, but your career path is not linear. So taking action and knowing that you're taking that action at that right point in time for you, when you have the capacity and when you have that fit. And that fit is not about whether you can fit it into your life, that's about capacity, but the fit in terms of where you're going for your career path. So when we're putting all of those together, we're then moving forward by, you know, like weaving your career path forward. It's really important. There's one myth that I've just spoken about that I want to bust, that I've just said, is that career paths are linear. You know, you go to high school, you go and get your Cert 4 or your diploma, your degree, your master's, then you get married, then you might change jobs or you get promoted. Career paths are not linear. Career paths are all over the place. And that was really good in terms of, is my slides working? Oh, there you go. One of the other career development theories that comes, that's more recent is the chaos theory of careers. And this was Jim and Robert. They were actually Australians, and I've done a course with them as well. You know, they were really great in bringing that into the industry, that you can't keep teaching people about career paths that are linear, when in actual fact, it isn't, you know. And they talk about trying to live on the edge of finding these opportunities, being uncomfortable about it, but working towards that rather than staying safe. And I guess the other one that I wanted to talk about is finding this dream job, this idea of a dream job, that throw that out the window, because you're limiting yourself by only thinking that this is going to be my job and that's all I'm going to go for. What you're missing out on is your growth, your self-awareness as you go from high school to university to, you know, like nearing your 30s. You're still going through changes, and that's where that self-awareness is a continuous cycle. Because this is from McCrindle. I love the stats that they come out with. And this was actually 2019. So pre-pandemic, they are talking about millennials, you know, having around 17 to 18 jobs and 5 careers. And I remember using that particular image in one of the blogs that I wrote. And I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I've been in ETS for over 14 years. But I'm in my 6th role. I have moved across different roles since I joined UTS over 14 years ago. But that's where it's at. It's not one career, it's careers. Yeah, it's not a straight line. It's in all directions. If you're going to be true to your career path, then I would say mobility is definitely the way to go, you know, because it's really not just about your studies. If you look at this every year, okay, cool, I've got 3 minutes left. You know, every year, this is a survey that comes out from graduate employers. And if you look at that, there's not much in terms of technical knowledge there. It's all transferable skills. Some of the things that we are really good at because of our oral culture is that communication skill. And I'm not just talking about presenting yourself in terms of this. I'm talking about presenting yourself when you're talking to people. And so you look at that, university grades, it's not even in, I think it's number 9 or 8 there. So they're called transferable skills. Soft skills is not a term that I like. Sometimes it's called employability skills, but it's those skills that go across each and every job. Yeah, it doesn't matter what your qualification is. And really, when you think about this, you think about the future of work. And this is a term, because of the space that I work in, I got sick of by 2019. Then the pandemic happened because people were looking at the future of work as in 2030. the pandemic happened and it's brought things forward, and we're all in that space now. So that's why I'm saying the future of work is now, actually, because we've got artificial intelligence and machine learning going, robotics, automation. Then we've got crowdfunding in terms of hackathons that you bring ideas together. The gig economy, you no longer have that one career. You might have a part-time job here, a casual job there, and then contracting on freelancing somewhere else. So that's the, who does the work and when and where the work is done. We're already doing that. Flexibility, people from all over the world. So somebody's getting up at 5:30 in the morning in the UK, and somebody's getting up at 6:30, working until 6:30 in the afternoon in the US, because the Australians are the clients, so they have to wake up for us during our normal hours. So just the future of work is just amazing in terms of the changes that are happening. But I think the confidence that you need to have as an educator is, despite all these robotics and talks about the machines taking over, the future of work is actually humans. Yeah, the human skill is what's going to be the thing that is most in demand. So human-centered design. So the new jobs that are created is actually about consulting about how humans can react to all these machine learning things. And when you're future-proofing your students in terms of the work that you're doing, it's really important to be aware that our students now, when they're getting into industry, it's actually workplaces that they're looking for is something that has purpose in there. The flexibility that needs to be in there. They're really great in summarizing in infographics, a lot of data. And you will see from that the hybrid learning that a lot of students have now accepted, but also the continuous learning that we need to have. I think I've got 60 seconds. So I guess my final tip for you is really try to navigate those 4 key principles that I spoke about in terms of the DOTS model, connecting them and clarifying your career direction. So when you're talking to students, question them, don't give them the answer. Let them decide what's going to work for them. And then weaving your way through this in terms of continuous learning. But also, please, as we do, share your knowledge and your experience. And I'm really sorry that I started so late. You don't get time to ask questions, but and I hope you found that useful. But we've got 46 seconds. If there's any final quick questions or anything, I can talk really quickly as well. But otherwise, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and tell your students, use the career service at their university. Make the most of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Esita, for giving such a powerful and inspiring presentation. It was really, really nice listening to how passionate and insightful you are. We've organized a gift for you to thank you for being part of the conference, and it will be sent to you in the next couple of days. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Pinaka.